Good morning. My name is Nick Gage, CEO and President of the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of our entire team, I'd like to welcome you to the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce's BizDev series of educational workshops. The goal of our educational series of workshops is to inform and to educate our business owners and consumers on today's relevant topics of discussion that impact them both today and in the future. Now, in this session, we're excited and pleased to have on our workshop series founder and president Victor Gomez of Pinacle Strategy and his associate Tanner Gers, Caps Inspector. The lens for today's session is top of mind for every business owner, small to large, ADA compliance. And Victor and Tanner will provide their insights on how best one can strengthen a better understanding of the complicated world of ADA compliance with a special focus on website accessibility requirements today. So with that as a short prelude, I'm going to hand over the session to Victor and Tanner.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Nick. Really appreciate the introduction and again, the opportunity to share with your members and all those out there of the work that we're doing here at California CALA. For those that don't know me, my name is Victor Gomez. I'm a government affairs specialist. I work for a number of companies helping them navigate local and state government. One of my clients happens to be the California Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse, as I act as their executive director. So I'm happy to be here with you. And again, Nick, to you and your membership and your staff, thank you again for this opportunity. For those that, again, that may not know, I spent over 17 years as a pizza franchisee. So I've been a small business owner since I was, about 25 years old when I purchased my first franchise. And so, business advocacy is very, very important to me. And making sure that we have sustainable small and medium-sized businesses in our communities is critical. We certainly do believe that they are the lifeline and huge just employers throughout California. And so again, happy to be here, happy to be representing members kind of throughout the state of California. Specifically, we're here to chat a little bit about accessibility, lawsuit abuse in general, but accessibility, and we'll transition over to Tanner here shortly to go over website accessibility, which has been critical. And there's a lot of businesses throughout California who are not aware of their requirements when it comes to website accessibility. So we want to share our knowledge, and Tanner will obviously, as well as a certified accessibility specialist, will share additional information. So we'll just jump right into our presentation here, and we'll take it one slide at a time.
There you
go. So first, my name, as I mentioned to you, is Victor Gomez. I do act as a contracted executive director for California Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse. Marianne Marino is my Southern California regional director, though I do spend quite a bit of time out there in Southern California as well, advocating for small business and the prevention of lawsuit abuse. Who are we? Well, Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse is essentially a grassroots organization. We are a registered nonprofit. We do serve really as a watchdog to challenge the abuse of the civil justice system. We work closely with the California Civil Justice Association as well. But a lot of folks are really paying the price for these lawsuits. Again, we'll get into that here in a second. But critical for us in our work to expose these injustices in the civil justice system. Our focus is ADA lawsuit abuse. Again, we'll get into that here in a second. We also focus a lot on the abuses of Prop 65 and PAGA, short for the Private Attorney General Act as well. If you go to our website, californiacala.org, californiacala.org, you'll find quite a bit of information on there as well. Specific to our reports are the economic benefits of tort reform meaning legal reform and how to change the legal and civil justice system. Trial attorney or trial lawyer spending to target business owners. That is, unbelievable. I come from a pizza background, and I'll tell you, I'm not sure who spends more money on marketing than the pizza industry does. It's pretty cutthroat and very competitive. And so I was shocked to actually hear that trial lawyers spend actually more money than than pizza companies do on on advertisements, and that's we'll get into that here in a second, but it's pretty crazy. And then next week, we're actually going to roll out our 2024-25 Judicial Hellholes Report, which really does shine the light on some of the worst states in the nation when it comes to lawsuit abuse and really the cost that we do incur here as California residents as well. That'll come out next week. Feel free to pop by our website, and you'll see that information released to the media next Tuesday. Legislative advocacy, this is quite a bit of work that we do too. It's certainly on an annual basis. We put together a lobby day where we go up to Sacramento and meet with 20 or 30 state legislators, either the governor's office, the attorney general, our state representatives from the state legislature to the Senate. And really what we're trying to do is just really educate the state legislators, state leaders on the impacts of lawsuit abuse, and how they can help us really stop these abuses of the civil justice system as well. And we continue to meet and present before legislators, educating them on the impacts of these abuses kind of up and down the state. Why should lawsuit abuse matter to you? A lot of this legal jargon is really confusing to some people, and so we do our best to try to simplify this. Data here in California does reveal that Californians pay the third highest tort tax or legal abuse tax in the nation. So each resident in California, I'm not talking businesses, these are you, everyday residents, through your state taxes, you pay $2,300 a year, up from $2,120 last year. And it's actually higher here in the Bay Area, exceeding $3,500 per resident. The impacts of that, it's more than $825,000 that were lost or that are lost every year due to excessive tort cost. In other words, and again, we'll get into that here in a second, but if you get hit with an ADA lawsuit and you're a small business owner, you own a taco shop, a small tap room, whatever it may be, a ADA lawsuit could cost you, thousands of dollars. Well, that's, look, as a small business owner, I'll tell you, if I'm hit with an ADA lawsuit, or a PAGA lawsuit or a Prop 65 lawsuit, I got to make up for that somehow. And unfortunately, in many cases, it's made up by cutting employees. You drop your payroll to make up for these legal abuses. And, unfortunately, it's led to nearly 1 million jobs lost here in California on an annual basis. So who makes the money? Well, no surprise, it's the attorneys. Trial attorneys spend a ton of money. And I know all of you folks see this. You see billboards, commercials. Trial lawyers spend a ton of money trying to suck you in to join either a class action lawsuit or really just to go after small business owners and try to go after them through, again, PAGA lawsuits or these ADA lawsuits. But as you can see here, trial lawyers poured in over $350 million into 3.5 million ads across California in just the last 18 months. From January 1st of 23 through June 30th of 24. And that includes television, print, radio. No surprise, trial lawyers have a lot of money. And so they'll do everything they can to spend that money to make more money. Funding state campaigns is another tactic of trial attorneys, and the trial bar really does lead this effort. Trial lawyers also, put in millions into elections and political action committees. They have their own PAC, their own political action committee, and they spend a lot of money giving money to gubernatorial candidates. They definitely put money behind, unfortunately, Rob Bonta, our state attorney general, because they know he really enforces a lot of these laws. And trial attorneys want these opportunities to be able to sue businesses. Because they, as you'll see here in a second, they make most of the money. It's actually not the victim or the person that was impacted by the lawsuit. It's really the trial lawyers that make a significant amount of money. As you can see here in our data since 2017, the top 20 plaintiff firms donated a combined $15.5 million to state legislative candidates, including those running for Assembly and Senate. What does that do? Well, it makes it really hard for us to do our job and try to find legal reform and stop these abuses, right, to small and medium-sized businesses. Specifically, we're not going to get into all these specifically, in depth, but we'll definitely do, our review on ADA. But the Private Attorney General Act is one that's used quite a bit. You may not hear about it, but I'll tell you, if you're an employer in Morgan Hill, you've probably heard about it. The PAGA lawsuits are essentially known as the sue your boss law. So for some reason, an employee felt like they were asked to clock out a minute too early or clock in a minute too late, you could get sued for that. And that's what the Private Attorney General Act essentially does. Is it was passed in 2004, and it essentially deputizes private attorneys to act as the Attorney General and sue companies. And unfortunately, in most cases, it's actually the trial lawyers that make the money. Sometimes you do recoup your time lost, but in many cases, these are class action lawsuits, and they could cost, into the millions of dollars. I could tell you firsthand, I don't want to disclose the nonprofit, but I do sit on the board of a local nonprofit, and that nonprofit was hit a couple of years ago with the $10 million Private Attorney General Act lawsuit. And we're working on settling that lawsuit right now. But unfortunately, they're going after nonprofits now as well. Again, a little bit more on the Private Attorney General Act. You probably did hear there were some reforms last year, and we were certainly happy to see that happen. Unfortunately, the only reason that the governor signed these two bills is because the California Chamber of Commerce did an absolutely fabulous job in gathering enough signatures to put the PAGA reform initiative on the ballot in November. And the governor and the state legislature and the state attorney general didn't like that. And so they negotiated with Cal Chamber to remove that with some concessions, of course. And it did help, it did improve it, but unfortunately, despite these reforms, PAGA just continues to pose challenges in California. I don't anticipate that these lawsuits are going to go away. They may dwindle down a little bit, but really they're not going anywhere. Prop 65 is another issue that we fight at the state level. For those that are not aware, you in most products you'll see a warning label. Every year the state adds new chemicals, as you can see here under our data. It does currently include more than 1,000 chemicals. And if you're a small manufacturer, if you happen to be in Morgan Hill and you're packaging, a toy that you're making, nail clippers, whatever it may be, if you're not properly putting that warning the right size, or you may have a new chemical that you weren't aware of that is now included in your product, and you're not putting the warning label on there, you could be sued for that. Through October 2024, Prop 65 settlements have totaled over $19.5 million. And as you look at the red highlight on the bottom, 85% of that, 16.8 million out of that 19.5, is actually going to attorney's fees, right? So we know why trial attorneys love adding new chemicals to the disclosure, because they know that as a small business owner or medium-sized manufacturer, you are so busy. I know I had a small office in the back of one of my franchises, and I lived there and I was busy. And I don't know how many of you folks, you small business owners, spend time, on January 1st going over the 3,000 bills that were approved by the state. I didn't. And unfortunately, in many cases, you learn by getting sued. And it's very unfortunate. But I'll tell you right now, the trial attorneys are all over this. And if they see a new chemical added, they will go after you if you did not properly notice that warning label. Well, transitioning into ADA, this is the largest abuse in California. And I do want to start off by saying that California Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse is 100% supportive of accessibility. We are 100% supportive of the Americans with Disabilities Act. We think it's important for everybody to have access. I'll tell you, as a small business owner myself, in the franchise world, I wanted to make sure whether you had accessibility issues or not, I wanted to make sure that you had access to my store. It doesn't matter whether you have accessibility issues or not. We want you as a customer, and we want to do everything we can to make sure that you have the access, the physical barrier access. And again, we'll get into the website accessibility too. We think it's important for those that may have vision issues or hearing issues, that you have accessibility to these websites. And in many cases, we work really hard with small businesses to make sure that they are complying with ADA law. Because again, the money's green, whether you're accessible, whether you have accessibility issues or not. Money is money, and we want to make sure that our businesses are succeeding. But unfortunately, here in California, it's really created a climate where 30% of the nation's ADA lawsuits are filed here, even though we are only 10% of the population of the nation. Here in California, we do host 30% of all the ADA lawsuits in California, second only to New York. And so that's huge, right? So the trend continues in 2024, and it does impact us quite a bit as small business owners. Small businesses are disproportionately targeted by ADA lawsuits due to their limited resources to defend themselves. But as I mentioned to you earlier, I was an owner operator. I wasn't the owner that was missing, like many of your members, Nick, the small business owners here in Morgan Hill. You're hands-on. I was doing my books in the morning. I was rolling dough in the mornings and early afternoon. And in peak period hours, I was making pizzas. I was working the register. I wasn't one of these, absent franchisees. Like many of us, we're hands-on. And because of that, unfortunately, we don't have the ability to, or knowledge necessarily to learn these laws. And again, it's really led to opportunities for these trial attorneys to go after small businesses. Many opt out to or opt to settle, right, rather than face costly litigation, and that could really exceed 50, nearly 100,000 in legal fees if you want to protect yourself. So a lot of small businesses don't do that. They just said, you know what, forget it. Here's $6, $10, $20,000. Go away. And that's really unfortunate because last year we did have a bill presented that actually went through the state Senate here in California, which would have allowed a 90-day curing period. So for some reason, if the ramp in front of your establishment was at the wrong incline, if the urinal in your restroom was too low or too high, those are things you could get sued for. Well, what we were trying to do is allow for a warning period. So if you were a small business owner, you were given essentially a notice first of a violation and given 90 days, or would have been given 90 days to fix the issue before you get sued. We thought that was a great idea. The trial attorneys didn't. And they worked really hard to kill that bill because they knew it would really be a problem for their money-making scheme, right? And unfortunately, it died in the assembly. And one of the assembly members, I don't want to name him, but one of the assembly members that killed the bill, the chair of the Judiciary Committee, happened to be taking a significant amount of contributions, political contributions for his reelection. And mysteriously, he killed our bill. And so, yeah, that's unfortunate that that's how politics works. We don't have those kind of resources to fund political campaigns, but we do really hope that the state legislature in this new session reconsiders that bill, and maybe we could bring it up here in 2025. My last slide here before I pass it over to Tanner is, again, an expansion a little bit on ADA lawsuit abuse and serial plaintiffs. It's really only a small number of law firms that are really dominating the ADA litigation space in California. And these cases often involve very minor issues, though, again, we really do believe they're important, but really minor issues. As I shared with you before, it could be the parking, your ADA parking space could be faded, could have changed colors. You could get sued for that. You could get sued for the sink in your publicly open restroom if it's an inch too low or too high, right? And so, again, we want accessibility for those that need it, but we also want to make sure we fix the issue because in many cases, you could get hit with an accessibility lawsuit, never fix the issue, and then and really helps nobody. It doesn't help that person that needs the accessibility. It only stuffs the pockets of the trial attorneys. Again, never fixes the issue. So we want to get to the root of the problem, right? Not just lawsuits. And again, website accessibility litigation is huge. That's super popular. It became really popular under COVID because everybody was hunkered down, and trial attorneys didn't have accessibility to go into your restroom and check the height of that urinal, or or that sink, or that toilet paper holder. Right? They couldn't do that. So what did they do? They turned over to websites, and they said, okay, well, let me see what websites are not accessible, and we're going to sue them now. We're going to sue the companies through their website. So California courts are really divided on whether websites need a nexus with physical location to qualify as public accommodations, creating really uncertainty in the litigation and further litigation risks for businesses. And that's why we think it's super critical to have here the next slide of the presentation by Tanner, because we do believe accessibility is important, and we want to make sure you have the tools necessary to get it done. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Tanner. Again, thank you so much for being with us and joining us, and I'll transition over to your segment.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Victor. And thank you, Nick, for creating space for both Victor and I to be here. And I just wanted to start off by thanking everybody for their attention today. This is really important to me. I myself am an entrepreneur, but I'm also a U.S. Paralympian and a staunch, passionate advocate for workforce development for people with disabilities. Quickly, I was born just a regular, traditional All-American kid growing up. But as an adult, I woke up in the hospital totally blind after a traumatic car accident. So I went to school, went to college, did the whole thing, was working as a professional as an adult, and then woke up in the hospital totally blind. And when I did so, immediately I began to understand what discrimination really feels like. I'm so blessed, being a white male, born in the United States. I didn't understand the privilege that I had until I became that difference. And the doctors, the medical community, education when I went back to school, and definitely in the corporate world, I experienced that discrimination. I never had a problem getting a job before I lost my sight. If I got the interview, I got the job, period. Right? After I lost my sight, it was a different story. And that's why I'm so passionate about workforce development. But as an entrepreneur, I understand what it means to be a small business. I understand what it means to try to grow and compete in the marketplace. And I understand what it would mean to me as an individual, as a business owner, if I got sued by a drive-by ambulance website chasing attorney to just try to line their pockets a little bit. It would be disruptive for me, and perhaps it could close my business down. And like Victor said, it would at least force me to let some people go. So that's what I want to talk about today, is to share with you guys exactly what you're responsible for, how to protect yourself, how to go on the defense for ADA websites, but also how to go on the offense and what the benefits are for you for just doing a couple little things. So how did we get here? If we can go to that slide, Victor, you guys can see the numbers here, right? Dramatic increase in lawsuits, over 4,500 filed last year, but over 5,000 this year so far. But how many cases were settled? This only talks about the cases that actually went through. So many more, hundreds, if not thousands of other cases were settled outside of court that we never knew about. And how many demand letters, even more, thousands and thousands of demand letters were sent to California companies about their website not meeting accessibility compliance. So that's when we started to see the emergence of other businesses like mine and other AI tools and automation companies start to pop up. Companies like Accessiby, Userway, AudioEye. These are another form of businesses like trial attorneys suing businesses to make a quick dollar. These companies were built for that same purpose, promising accessibility, promising protection, but delivering nothing. So it is so how did we get here, and what's the markets right now? This is where it's at. So moving to the next slide, how do we go about protecting our business? All right. So first off, Victor's kind of discussed this a little bit, like what are the responsibilities that we have? Curb cuts, doorways, bathrooms, those are all physical accessibility issues or violations, and those are legally protected. That's law. The same things apply to your website. Okay, so form, newsletters. Can someone actually make a purchase, right? In Victor's case, right? Could I get on the website and order a pizza from the location that he's working at? If a user with a disability can't do that with a screen reader or another type of assistive technology tool, right? Those are going to, that's, you're violating the law. So how do we go about protecting our business? Now, I understand as an entrepreneur, I'm not advocating that everybody here to go out and do every single thing that the law requires, right? What I'm advocating for you guys to do is, one, make sure that people with disabilities can use your website, and two, make sure that drive-by attorneys can't sniff out an opportunity to sue you, because there's a method and a process that they go about doing this. So how do you protect your business? First is you're doing digital accessibility testing and reports, right? If you get hit with a lawsuit, you being able to push back and send the judge the letter that says, hey, here's all our accessibility testing, here's all our accessibility reports. This case is irrelevant and needs to get dismissed. You have to do the work so that you can show the evidence that the work's been done. You can do that with automated testing and manual testing, and I'm going to teach you exactly how to do that stuff in a moment. And these periodic reports showing improvement, maintaining compliance, this is one of the tricks to getting these cases dismissed, and actually how you would push back against one of these attorneys that are sending you a demand letter. Okay. They are looking for opportunity. They're looking for vulnerability. They're looking for money. And if you can make sure that they know that it's going to be hard to get any money from you, it's a great way to defend yourself. You can do that also by putting up an accessibility statement and policy right on your website. So in the footer of your website, put up a link that says accessibility or accessibility statement, and then describe what you're doing for accessibility right there. At our website, accessibilityofficer.com, there's a great accessibility statement. It's super comprehensive. I don't recommend you copy that verbatim. What I do recommend is you learning how we're positioning ourselves to protect ourselves from the same risks. We are a business. We have a website. We are just as vulnerable to these same drive-by lawyers as you guys are. So, and finally, don't use an accessibility overlay. I mentioned this earlier, Accessibility, AudioEye, UserWay, these widgets that sit on top of your website that make you think that you're accessible, that they promise you that they're creating accessibility compliance for you. They are not. It's all fictitious. Accessibility right now is being sued by the Security Exchange Commission and other triple letter agencies in the federal government for lying, for false representation, for AudioEye is also under litigation right now under the federal government for their lies and marketing mistruths. So just don't use those companies. There's plenty of settlements published online about all the reasons why these overlays don't work. They just make you more vulnerable. Overlay Fact Sheet, overlayfactsheet.com is another great resource to educate yourself on. But more importantly is you could just use the DIY digital accessibility guide. I'm going to tell you exactly everything that you need to do and exactly how to test, how to protect yourself. Why? I want you to protect yourself. I'm not interested in, getting a whole bunch of money from small businesses like these trial attorneys. I'm interested in protecting small businesses and making sure, like Victor said, that we've got employers in California still able to employ their employees and protect themselves from this type of litigation and abuse. So what do lawyers do? Let's go to the next slide, Victor. What do lawyers do? Okay, so they're going to test your homepage, right? How are they going to test your homepage? They're going to use software. They're not going to do it manually. They're going to use software to try to find these issues, these accessibility violations, because there's software tools that can tell them that. And if they see a bunch of accessibility violations, you know what they're going to do? They're going to have a plaintiff. They have a bench of plaintiffs, people with disabilities that they've recruited to sign up and sue businesses. So the plaintiff is going to then manually test your website. So a lawyer will use software and they'll find a few violations and they're like, it's the sniff test, right? Like, is there opportunity here? I'm going to now, if I see some violations, I'm now going to have a plaintiff go to your website so I can say legally, we've had a person with a disability struggle to use your website. And as soon as they do that, you're going to get a demand letter. you're going to get a letter that is going to threaten you and put you against the highest courts in the land, right? They're going to sue the crap out of you if you don't immediately comply with these things. And they're going to be vague, and it's going to be ambiguous, and you're not going to know what to do. Right? So that's what they do. They're going to test your website. They're going to find a blind plaintiff. They're going to validate that there's actually an opportunity here, and then they're going to sue the pants off of you. That is what lawyers do. So going to the next slide, how do you go on ADA defense? How do you protect your business from this happening? Now, lawyers are looking for the juiciest, lowest hanging fruit. That's why they first test your website with software, right? So you're going to do the same thing. You're going to pick a free or low cost digital accessibility tool. There's plenty of them out there. We even have one internally at our organization called Dart Suite, right? And you're going to test your homepage. That's what lawyers do. They're going to test the homepage, right? And you're going to see all of these violations that automation can find, that software can find. Then you're just going to fix them. A lot of these are going to be like unlabeled links or form fields that aren't labeled correctly or color contrast issues. These are going to be simple things that you can change that don't dramatically affect how your website looks. It's all underneath. It's all what we call programmatic. It's all behind the scenes. So these changes aren't going to affect the functionality of your website, like how you know it today. It's not going to check the aesthetics of your website, how you know it today. What it's going to do is programmatically behind the scenes help make sure that your website is protected from these drive-by lawyers who are looking for these accessibility issues so they can then sink a plaintiff on top of you. All right. And then you want to provide a way, this is critical, on your accessibility statement page or your accessibility page or anywhere on your website. You need to provide a way for customers to report accessibility issues and get help, right? This is a great protection that you can do for your business. It's a simple way to get feedback and collect it from your customers, but also it's a way to protect yourself. Easy, low-cost solution. Then again, you can go further with the DIY digital accessibility toolkit. I believe we've got a slide coming up here with a QR code as well as the link where you can download this and review it directly. So let's go to the next slide. And how do we go on ADA offense, right? Like, how do we actually turn this vulnerability, this threat, into an opportunity? This is really about understanding how digital accessibility directly improves your marketing and your ability to attract customers to your website. If that's valuable for you, you want to pay attention here, right? Getting more people to your website. Digital accessibility violations are also the same things that Google's looking for with regards to your technical search engine optimization and your mobile optimization. With the new Google updates, technical SEO, search engine optimization, and mobile optimization, how a user accesses your website from their mobile device, are core critical components to how Google ranks you in search results. It's how people find you. When they say, hey, Siri, let me see a pizza restaurant nearby, or hey, Siri, I need to talk to a handyman. They're going to be using Safari and Google to find these people. And how Google is ranking you is heavily dependent now on technical SEO and mobile optimization. So simply by doing digital accessibility best practices, you're going to improve your ability to drive customers to your website. Has nothing to do with people with disabilities. Has everything to do with top line revenue. So then what you want to do is partner with an external provider, all right? And then equip or if you have an internal team, like you have a director of marketing, equip them with tools and resources, right? Like the DIY Digital Accessibility Compliance Guide. This is going to allow you to focus on the things that really are important to your business. If driving traffic to your website, it's so you can focus on the creative, the ads, all the things that you do to drive traffic to your website. Digital accessibility, just make sure when they get there, it's mobile optimized, your SEO's optimized, and you're not going to get hit with a drive-by lawsuit. So remove the accessibility violations that software can find, maintain minimal compliance by doing those checks ongoing. Every time you do a no blog post, every time you change your website, do a quick scan. It takes only a few seconds, and you're going to catch all of those violations that lawyers can find. And that's going to help you maximize your user experience, maximize your conversions, and again, help you with that top line revenue. That's how you go on offense with ADA compliance. So going to the next slide, how do you test your website for ADA compliance? Right here, I believe it is the QR code that we've got for the DIY Digital Accessibility Compliance Guide. And that's going to tell you everything that you need to do for digital accessibility. Victor, I'll go ahead and hand it back to you.
Excellent. Well, that wraps up our presentation, Nick. I'm happy to pass it back over to you. The one thing I do want to share is, you could certainly find out more information. Tanner obviously provided some QR links here and some fabulous information. You could also go to our website, californiacala.org, californiacala.org, to learn more about our organization. And obviously, here how to get a hold of Tanner as well in case you have any follow-up questions. You can make contact with us through our website as well. I am a Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce member. I'm sure you can look up my information as well if you have questions there. We do not provide just want to make this note here. We do not provide legal advice to you, but we're more than happy to provide referrals or information if you need that. But again, having somebody like a certified accessibility specialist like Tanner is very, very important. They're here to help as well. So with that said, Nick, happy to pass it back over to you and answering any questions if anybody has any.
Well, I just wanted on behalf of the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce, both Victor and Tanner, I want to thank you for your expertise and your time today. You're right. All of our small business owners, medium to large business owners, we're here because of the passion of the products that we sell, and we want to do the right things. The ADA requirements sometimes can be very complex in its nature itself. So having an opportunity to help inform our members is why we're here really today. And as a note, we will be recording this obviously for our BizDev workshop series on our Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce YouTube site for further dissemination. And of course, if any of our members want to get in contact with either with Victor or Tanner, you can obviously call our office and we'll go ahead and route you on over to be able to have those conversations that are important and vital for you. So again, Victor and Tanner, thank you for your time. Thank you for your expertise. Thank you for your passion in this area. And look forward to continue to working with both of you on some other seminars and workshops to come. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Nick.
Bye-bye, guys.